Welcome to the podcast for and about Colorado Springs. I'm your host, Brittany Felix, and every Monday through Friday, I'll be talking about a different aspect relating to the Springs, including upcoming events, restaurant reviews, local business spotlights, media coverage about the Springs, public works projects, local activities, answering your questions about the city, and much, much more. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any of the updates, and also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find links to all of those social media accounts at springspodcast.com/social media. The Colorado Springs podcast is proudly sponsored by Elevation Hydration. Elevation Hydration is the only hydration therapy clinic serving Colorado Springs, and they are dedicated to helping you elevate your life. They use intravenous vitamin therapy to help athletes needing a boost of energy or help recovering after a tough competition, people experiencing cold-like symptoms or dehydration from the flu, anyone needing to recover quickly from a rough night out. I'm looking at you, college kids. And just anyone wanting a healthy alternative to preventative care. They have a wide variety of hydration packages to help address whatever your needs are. They're conveniently located inside Lush Beauty Lounge at 812 Village Center Drive, and if you mention this podcast during your visit, you'll receive $10 off any hydration package. To learn more about Elevation Hydration or to schedule an appointment, visit springspodcast.com/hydrate. Welcome to episode 25 of the Colorado Springs podcast. I'm so excited for this episode today because I'm going to be talking about an experience that my sister-in-law and I had working with Little Glass Art. Little Glass Art is a local business here in Colorado Springs, and it is run by Justin and Jordan. By the way, Jordan is actually a female. And Justin reached out to me over Instagram and asked if I would be interested in attending one of their classes or having a private session with them so that I could learn more about what they do in order to talk about it on this podcast. And I'm a pretty creative person. I love working with my hands. I love creating pieces of artwork. Typically, I've always kind of painted, or I've done some like canvas cutout silhouette type of work in the past, but I was especially intrigued by Little Glass Art and what it is that they're doing. Obviously, if you can't tell from the name, they work with glass, but specifically, they wanted me to come and participate in what they call sip and solder, or if you're like me and it drives you absolutely nuts that the L in the word is not pronounced, sip and solder. And what that means is basically fusing glass pieces together with a very hot soldering iron and strips of metal. So what they actually do is they have these patterns. I think there's like 50 or 60 different ones that you can choose from. And they cut the glass pieces for you depending on whatever pattern you pick. And they have them kind of laid out like a puzzle with a diagram on a piece of paper. And they have everything numbered for you. And you actually get to go in and kind of clean up the edges of the glass with a grinder. And you just kind of rough up the edges to make sure that the metal and everything's going to really adhere to it. And you just kind of use the grinder to clean up the lines, fix the shapes, because the cuffs are, I mean, they're pretty good, but they're a little bit rough. They need a little bit of tweaking, and so you can kind of shape it a little bit more if there's something that you want it to look just a little bit cleaner. And then you take this very, very, very hot soldering iron and these strips of metal, and you basically just melt the metal into the cracks where the glasses are supposed to fit together. And then the metal dries almost instantly. I mean, it's still warm to the touch, but I mean, it hardens almost instantly. And then you're left with two pieces of glass that are stuck together. And I know I'm not explaining this very well, but if you've ever seen stained glass artwork where they've got, you know, the kind of the lines in between each piece of glass, that's what that is. You're essentially just almost gluing these pieces of glass together, but you're using heat and metal instead of actual glue. And when Justin approached me about participating in this project and especially getting to do a private session with him and Jordan, I jumped at the chance because everyone does paint with a twist or wine and canvas. Everyone knows about those things, and I love them. They are so fun. I've done them before. I used to paint in my free time when I had more of it, so there's nothing wrong with those events at all. But I like unique experiences, and I love working with my hands and tools, oddly enough. My father has a construction company, so I think I get a little bit of that from him. But the idea of working with, the soldering iron and metal and creating a stained glass piece of artwork just was so fascinating to me. And so we went to their location, which they are actually inside of Full Spectrum Art Glass Supply and Gallery, which is actually located on East Fillmore Street. Oddly enough, it is right by where we live, and I had no clue it was there. It's tucked away in a little corner of a shopping center, and it's where they hold their classes and their private sessions. They essentially rent out the studio space from the woman that owns it, who is incredibly nice and so wonderful. We got to meet her as well. Justin and Jordan were great. They were so personable. It wasn't awkward at all. Even though I talk to you guys 5 times a week, I actually am an introvert. I call myself an extroverted introvert, which means I can turn it on when I have to, like when I'm recording. But for the most part, I get kind of awkward meeting new people and being in new situations. And so I tend to be a little bit more reserved, and I observe people. And Justin and Jordan made it not awkward at all. We had a wonderful conversation while they were showing us all of this. They were super patient with us while we were figuring out what we were doing. It's actually, I'm going to say this, and it's both true and not true, it's a lot easier than you might think it is. The idea of creating stained glass artwork using this extremely hot soldering iron and metal is very intimidating, I think. But once you get there, you find out that the process is actually so much easier. It's totally manageable. Now, it may not be pretty when you're finished, because it does take a level of skill. And if it's your first time ever doing it, you're not going to have super clean lines or anything like that. But it's still going to be a nice piece of artwork. And honestly, I like the imperfections. It makes it more obvious to me that it's something I created with my own hands, and it's not something that I just went out and bought at a store. Plus, I plan on going back and doing more of these, so it will be super interesting to compare them as I do more in the future and see my skills improve. And I'm going to have links in the show notes for this episode of the piece that I created, the piece that my sister-in-law created, and some pictures of us kind of in the process of what we were doing with the grinding and the soldering. I think the whole process took us maybe an hour. The wonderful thing about what they do with Little Glass Art is that they provide everything for you. So you literally just have to show up. You don't have to bring any tools or any experience, and you're going to walk away with a really cool custom stained glass art piece. And they do have classes, kind of like what you think of for like a typical wine and canvas, and you can go and attend these classes, and there's going to be multiple people there, or you can do a private session. The prices are incredibly reasonable considering the materials that you're using and the quality of the glass that you're using and the end result that you get out of it and the fun time that you have during it. And I know my sister-in-law absolutely loved the experience as well. She thought it was so interesting and fascinating. She's also kind of an artistic, creative person as well, and she comes from a father who is exactly the same, so she kind of has it in her blood. And we both just found the whole thing extremely fascinating, just learning about the different techniques and what it is that goes into creating this type of artwork. And so one of the things that I also love is the fact that they are just regular people. They happen to have a different skill set that most people don't have and that a lot of artists don't have. They happen to work with glass. But for the most part, they're just small business owners, and they're trying to reach more people here in the Springs and get this unique experience out to more people, because it really should be. This is such a unique way of experiencing art and having a fun night out with your girlfriends, a date night if you wanted even, or even if you just wanted to attend one of the classes or have a solo session on your own. It really is perfect for anybody, and you can even have your kids do it. They do ask that if you're going to have children participate, that you schedule a private session, and that's just so that they can pay, a little bit more attention to what's happening with the situation, because the tools are very hot. You have to wear special gloves when you handle them. So they like to have their attention completely focused on the child and just making sure they're safe. And they also do ask that an adult accompanies them as well. But absolutely a child could do this. I will say my sister-in-law teaches kindergarten, and she was 100% convinced there was no way she would have her kindergarten children do it. But someone who's a little bit older and takes directions very well and understands how to be cautious around hot things could absolutely do this, and they would probably have a blast doing it. And Justin and Jordan do actually have a couple of classes coming up in February. So I'm going to have a link to their events page in the show notes on my website so that you can check this out and see if you want to attend one of those classes. And of course, you can also schedule a private session from their website as well. And I was really excited to hear that they are expanding, actually. They're going to be offering some classes in Pueblo and I believe even Denver. So that's awesome and it's growing, and I think that's fantastic because I seriously, honestly, just cannot say enough good things about Justin and Jordan and Little Glass Art. And yes, I did receive a private session for my sister-in-law and I, free of charge, in exchange for talking about it on this show. But I absolutely promise you, if I did not 100% believe that this is absolutely worth your time, I would have just paid them whatever the private session cost and not felt obligated to talk about it. But I was so excited after leaving that I couldn't even wait to share one of the pictures. I instantly shared it out on my Instagram and Facebook, and I've been kind of dying to do this episode and talk to you about it. So if you need a fun girls' night out or a fun date night or just a nice, relaxing solo night to yourself even, maybe have a date night with yourself, definitely check out Little Glass Art. I'm going to have a link to their website, their events, and also their Facebook page and their Instagram account so that you can really find out exactly what they're doing and the type of projects that you can do with them and what their events are so that you don't miss anything. And you can also participate in this amazing experience. And real quick before I end this, I do want to mention that Justin was kind enough to offer a special discount specifically for the listeners of the Colorado Springs podcast. So I'm going to have that discount code in the show notes on my website, as well as my social media posts on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And so if you want to receive 20% off your tickets, make sure that you grab that code. So don't forget to check out the show notes for their website, their events, their social media links, the discount code, images from our visit, all of that fun stuff is going to be at springspodcast.com/025. And again, those are the actual numbers, 025. That's going to wrap it up for today. I have a feeling I will be talking about Jeremy and Jordan again in the future as they continue to expand their business, and we might even have one of them on the show at some point to talk about it themselves. But for now, I recommend that you follow Little Glass Art on Facebook and Instagram and check out their website, which will all be linked to in my show notes. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you back here on Monday for yet another episode. Have a great weekend.